Pam Grier is considered the first black female superhero and the pioneer of the Blaxploitation genre. But just how much success has all this praise and acclaim amounted to over the years? Let's find out. Pam was born on May 26, 1949, in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Her family relocated often because her father served in the Air Force, and only a few days after she was born, they moved to Colorado. Pamela was a teenager in the 60s when the civil rights movement in America was at its greatest popularity. There were strikes against segregation taking place all over the country, and the movement was more photographed and televised than it had ever been. Buses that weren't full would refuse to stop for her and her mother. Her father finally got the chance to not have to move as much anymore when the military offered him permanent housing. Her father passed for white because he was biracial. However, after finding out that they were an African-American family, they rescinded the offer. A lot of her memories of her teenage years include being refused entrance into certain stores and restaurants in America. Pam showed an early interest in the arts and in horse riding from a young age. She spent a lot of her summers at her grandparents' farm and fell in love with horses there. Her mother tried to enroll her in music and horse riding school, but she was rejected from all of them because of her race. She instead participated in productions and pageants at her local high school to try to raise money for her family and save for college. Her parents got divorced during this time, and most of the responsibility of keeping the house together fell on her and her siblings. After a few years, a German woman agreed to give Pam piano lessons. In 1968, a talent agent, David Baumgarten, discovered her at the Miss Colorado pageant show. While she was working for his agency, a director, Roger Corman, decided to cast her in one of his action films, and this started her industry reputation for being the black woman in the action films. Her big break, however, came when director Jack Hill discovered her and cast her in a series of films that would define a genre, Blaxploitation. In 1972, she starred in The Big Birdcage, followed by her breakout role as Coffy in 1973's Coffy, which catapulted her to stardom in the Blaxploitation era. It wasn't typical at the time to have a black woman as the lead of an action film. Although the films were ridden with negative stereotypes about black people and women, contained violence and profane language, and often hypersexualized Pam, they created a space for her in an industry in America where she was constantly being rejected for opportunities on the basis of her race. It also allowed her to play more autonomous female characters with more agency than most other women in the industry at the time, especially in popular American media. For these reasons, she's considered the first black female action film hero. Some people may have found it demoralizing to make blaxploitation films because they were not considered high art in the film industry at all. In fact, the term is usually used in a somewhat derogatory sense to say that the films were not unintelligent. They offered black actors the chance to be at the center of a narrative, whilst also only portraying the worst stereotyped versions of them. In an interview about the term with Tom Power, she said, "It wasn't blaxploitation for the first 9 movies ever done by black males, not until I stepped into a man's shoes. All the movies started being like mine because we were staying in the theaters too long. Coffy knocked James Bond out of first place at the box office." She believes the term blaxploitation was a monetary conspiracy to encourage people to stop going to see her films because they weren't as good as other films in the theater. She believes that by making people feel guilty for watching films that indulged in black culture and stereotypes, other movies would be pushed in, while hers were shoved out of theaters. Instead of seeing it as worthy entertainment, the term was used synonymously with the term dirty film, something you shouldn't be caught watching. This takes the power of choice away from the audience by pressuring them into avoiding certain media. However, most of what people remember about her films is how racy they were, and Pam doesn't deny this reality. When she was making films like Coffy, She never imagined that they would ever be as popular or genre-defying as they were. In fact, she had a plan set out to leave film and return to science, which she claims was a big part of her childhood. She didn't think she would get any more roles and wasn't excited to keep doing films. However, when they turned out to be a phenomenon, she was skeptical about the reactions of some audience members. They saw her racy characters, and instead of having a conversation about whether or not she actually would have liked for her character to be depicted that way, they decided for her that it wasn't what she wanted. They saw the sexuality of a woman in the film as inherently bad. Pam Grier believed that it was better to not judge and politicize the character she chose for herself. She calls her Blaxploitation era the nipple revolution. Throughout the 1970s, Grier dominated the silver screen with iconic roles in films like Foxy Brown and Friday Foster. As the years went on, she reached a point in her career where she was constantly being typecast and being offered more limiting roles because directors believed that her only film appeal was her attractiveness. The Blaxploitation genre itself was on the downturn of its popularity. The films weren't selling as well as they used to, and project production slowed down. She was getting fewer roles, and her roles were becoming less significant to the films she was in. For a brief moment, her career was in crisis. In the 1980s and 1990s, Grier transitioned to television and acted in shows like Miami Vice and The Cosby Show. She also made guest appearances in Martin and The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Pam has been in films as recently as 2023 and hasn't slowed down her acting career one bit. Her last known role was Marjorie Washburn in the new Pet Sematary movie and voice acting Neckbone in The Great North. In 2010, she published a memoir, Foxy, My Life in 3 Acts, in which she details her life story and experiences as a black woman in the entertainment industry, especially during the Blaxploitation era. Rediscover an elusive era of Black Hollywood that you missed out on by clicking the subscribe button and notification bell. Trust me, Black Hollywood goes way deeper than you think. Pam has never been married. Her first relationship was with the basketball player Ferdinand Lewis in 1969. He converted to Islam during the course of their relationship, changing his name to Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and proposed under the condition that she would convert as well. Pam refused, and he married someone else that same day. Pam briefly dated Freddie Prinze, but they separated when Freddie wanted a family, and Pam did not, considering her history of depression and drug abuse. Freddie also struggled with addiction. She met Richard Pryor when she was still dating Prince, and they started dating in 1977. Pryor had a much worse drug problem than she ever had, and at the time she was sober. She believed that she could change him and help him become sober too. For a while, this worked, and he was sober for 6 months before relapsing and becoming worse than he was before. Their relationship became verbally abusive, and Pam felt forced to stay because she was afraid no one else would be able to take care of him. She told Fox News, "I knew sobriety was his hero, and he had so many opportunities. He was just squandering it. I didn't want to judge or beat him when he was down, so I just didn't feel it was right for me to go." Richard attempted suicide by self-immolation. Before this, he tried to convince Pam to come with him to say goodbye to all of his friends before he did. She refused. She did not visit him when he was admitted to a hospital. He married a different woman, Deborah McGuire, while he was still dating Pam in 1977. She came very close to marriage in 1998 when she got engaged to RCA record executive Kevin Evans. She was then diagnosed with cervical cancer and told that she only had 18 months left to live. Kevin Evans called off the engagement after her diagnosis. After chemo treatment, her cancer went into remission and has been that way since. Pam Grier's net worth as of 2024 is $4 million according to LuxLux. In 1998, Pam lived in her Sherman Oaks home with her then-fiancé, Kevin Evans. The three-story house has 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms and spans about 5,700 square feet. They decided to sell the home that year to move somewhere closer to nature. The home sold for $1.2 million. Pam grew up with very fond memories of the countryside. She spent a lot of time there with her grandparents and got used to working on the farm every day. When she was little, she got on a horse without permission after being instructed not to. And to her surprise, it was gentle with her, and she fell asleep on its back in the barn. In 2017, she told the Wall Street Journal that she moved back to a ranch in Colorado, where she takes care of rescued horses. Her Colorado home near the ranch is about 3,000 square feet. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a pool. Click on this next video and discover the mesmerizing inner life of another Black Hollywood star. What's your favorite Pam Grier movie?